So, Annabella, these are 20 common questions that I either got from our YouTube comments or just random one-on-one calls with students that I've had throughout the year. And these questions in particular, I selected them because they stood out to me the most. I feel like the students that asked them felt huge relief just asking the questions. It's like they couldn't ask it anywhere else, and they are kind of afraid to ask them. So I wanted to ask them to you so I could hear your answers, if that's okay. So the first question, really big one to start it off, is college even worth it anymore?
Yes, yes, and yes. I would say it's worth it because we all need an education. I feel that college doesn't teach you a specific subject, it teaches you how to think. So, for example, one of my majors is political science. Am I doing anything with political science? I don't even like to talk about politics at the table, but it teaches you how to think. So, it's always going to be relevant. You'll be able to do networking, meet new people, experiences. It's not just about the education, but at the same time, education is everything too.
Mhm. This question for me is really big. I did think about this quite a lot. I still think that college isn't necessarily for everyone. Yes, absolutely for if you want to study like engineering, you go into law school, maybe study medicine, like those things. Obviously, you need college. But for example, let's say you want to get into business, right? You're more of an entrepreneur. Then maybe it's not necessarily that important for you. Maybe if you invest all those $400,000 that you would invest into, I don't know, Colombia or whatever, you could invest it into your business, into other education, more non-formal education courses, mentorships. Then maybe it's not for everyone, or at least maybe it's not the best return investment for everyone. So what do you think about that? Do you agree?
So it may not be the full return on investment. So if you put in 400,000, will you get out 400,000 from it? But I would say more as like the experience from it. Sometimes I have had students that are 18 years old. They're making millions of dollars. They have their own small businesses, but yet I still recommend going to college. It's a great way for them to grow, network, get some type of lessons. And the reality is, I'm also a business owner. I also study business. We're going to learn from life. We're going to make mistakes, and that's inevitable. But an investment in a college education is really going to help you have more tools and more decisions and ultimately like a network.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like there's nothing bad that college can bring you. I mean, yes, there's bad stuff, but you will learn something. I mean, if you have the
You
opportunity
will.
to go to college, I think I also agree that you totally should. Though there are still other things that you shouldn't only depend on college. In my personal opinion, I feel like you should still do other things on the side. If you're an entrepreneur, don't just go to college and do nothing. If you really like entrepreneurship, you can do it on the side, or mainly and do college just for learning and enjoy the learning. But I feel like everyone can make it fit. Do you agree?
Yeah, I totally agree. So college is for everyone. And even if you have learning difficulties, we can still make this happen. There are resources. I don't see this as an impediment for a specific group of students at all.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Question number two. There has to be a way to guarantee an acceptance at a top school. There's no way it's actually that random. What do these students that get accepted to every Ivy League have? What makes them special? This is probably one of the biggest questions out there regarding top college admissions because it's so unpredictable. Like every single year it's worse. So, what do you think? Like, do these kids have something special in them? Like, what is it?
Yeah, so the way I see this is it's easy to identify these things. Um, it's kind of like, okay, is this an AI written essay? Like you can sniff these out. Same thing with these like IB applicants that they're that type of material. Everybody has a story. So what that means to me is the essay is compelling. Yes, they have amazing grades, but they have something very cohesive, like a full story, the application, the curriculum, everything that you really say, like, wow, this person is gonna be a great fit for this college, and that's what they're looking for here.
Hmm. You mentioned fit, and I feel like it's really important for top school admissions. But what about those kids that apply to all Ivy Leagues and literally get accepted everywhere? You see this online all the time, like on YouTube videos. They get the most viral, obviously. What about them? Like, is it possible that they actually fit everywhere? Like, what do they have?
They have that secret sauce. They are able to market themselves in such a great way that you could say, wow, okay, I see you in this college and I see you in this. I'm going to give you an analogy just to make things a little bit sweeter and more exciting. As you know, I really have a sweet tooth. I name my dogs after desserts. I love sweets, love them. So I really enjoy going, for example, to Whole Foods and I'll be browsing around, typically, most likely, the sweet section. What's the best chocolate chip cookie? So I'm 5'1", so not too tall. So I'd rather have cookies that are like at my eyes length type of approach, right? And then what's appealing to me? Is it the marketing? Is it the color? Is it the logo? Is it the slogan? Is it the story behind it? Um, Maybe I'm looking for something that's gluten free or with something that they're talking about food allergies or whatever the case. So there's a specific type of fit for everyone. So same thing here in terms of colleges. And I hate to say that we are like cookies or we are like a specific branding or product, but the way we market ourselves, the college will be like, yes. And same thing. Whole Foods will be like, this is going to be a great fit. These cookies will sell. But maybe another supermarket, Fresh Market will be like, yeah. So that's why there's so many Ivies that that will say, accepted, accepted, accepted. And that's what we need.
That's interesting. So it's still the same person, but it's how they position themselves for every school that makes it sound like they're a perfect fit for each one.
Exactly. Exactly.
So would the main skill be sales in that aspect?
Yeah, we need to learn how to be sales. Even if you want to be a doctor, whatever, we need to have that knack for that. You need to learn how to market yourself in a way that you have that secret sauce that the college will be like, we want you here. Just like Whole Foods will say, I want those cookies here, and any other supermarket as well.
Okay, so question number 3. And this is pretty much connected to question number 2. What are the signs that I'm good enough for the Ivy League? How can I know if I'm enough? If I'm analyzing my application, my profile, like, how can I know?
So the first indicators I would say is the quantitative part. Do you have the grades? Do you have the GPA? Do you have amazing recommendation letters that if you were to ask a teacher, hey, could you recommend me? The teacher would be like, yes, without hesitation, one of the best students I've ever had. And then it's the qualitative parts. Have you really created an impact? Have you left a mark? What have you done? So the college will be like, okay, yeah, like you've passed that threshold of the grades, but now we're going above and beyond the rest. That's why.
How do you know your story is good enough?
Well, you're going to create it along the way. How do you know a writer is going to create the best story ever, a bestseller? Either the writer has a vision and they're going to be like, it's amazing, or as they're creating it, they're going to be like, wow, this is actually pretty interesting. My readers are going to like that.
So kind of similar to the previous one. It's not like your story is or isn't good enough. It's more like if you will be able to invest enough time and work to making it sound good enough.
Correct. Yes. And at the end of the day, just like the cookies part, sometimes I purchase cookies that they're not that good, but the packaging is fabulous. So same thing here. Maybe your story is not exceptional or whatever, but it's what you're actually like marketing per se.
That's interesting. And it may not be the sexy answer that anyone like wants to hear, but it's like the truth.
Yeah.
You gotta learn some stuff along the way. It's not like
Absolutely.
a good formula. Sadly, like we would like it to be that way. It's not that way,
Yeah.
sadly.
These are the hard truths. I'm being unapologetic. We're being open here.
Yeah. Okay, so question number 4. My high school isn't very prestigious. Do I still have a shot at a top school?
Yes, yes, and yes. I've had students that attend low income, overly populated, highly saturated public schools or private schools in the middle of nowhere, and they're still able to get into excellent schools. So doesn't make a difference. Of course, you will hear about stories that there are high schools that are like Ivy feeders, yes, but you can still stand out. And I think it's even easier to stand out in a place where it's like kind of like basic. You can even do better.
Cool. And by the way, would you still think that some schools do give you an advantage, like what you would call feeder schools? Do they exist?
Yeah, so sometimes I have students that reach out to me and they say, "Hey, I go to this type of school." I'm like, "Okay, we've already we're already ahead of the game, and that's a reality."
So, question number 5. I really like this one because I do see it a lot. Why do colleges like weirdos?
Because weirdos are interesting. We want to get to know more about weirdos. Maybe it's a quirkiness. Maybe it's like that special vibe type of thing. We don't want basic or cookie cutter versions of each student. We really want them to stand out. It's interesting. I'm curious about what a weirdo does and doesn't do.
But I mean, you have two types of weirdos. You have like the weirdos that are like cool nerds that are nerdy about really specific things that are actually kind of cool and you want to know more.
Yeah,
And you have weirdos or people that do really like not good stuff, maybe. I don't know. But you have two
yeah,
types, right?
yeah.
So up to what extent, let's say you're a student that feels kind of normal, like kind of the standard student, average, and you don't feel like a weirdo. How do you make that work?
So every person has a story, everybody. So with that being said, you just have to kind of like navigate it and analyze like what do you want the colleges to really know about you? And I totally understand this. This is a difficult part. This is part of like the storytelling. Many times I have students that they'll tell me, Annabella, my life is totally uneventful. I have nothing really to say. I wasn't in a hurricane, tornado, war, blah, blah, thank goodness. But at the same time, it's like trying to navigate what makes you special. And I have this methodology that, like, when I'm coaching my students, I'm always like, I really like to have these conversations where it's like, okay, tell me more. Tell me about yourself, as if it were like a job interview. What's the weirdest thing you've ever done? And I always like to think about like these quirky aspects. What if you were to wake up one day with something different? How would you react? Would you embrace it? Would you do this? This helps you get to know who you are.
Well, that's interesting. Like interesting way of seeing like brainstorming, doing hypotheticals, kind of digging more. That's a cool point. And I also seen people that feel like don't have pretty good stories, like write essays about hypothetical scenarios. So they actually talk about their mind more than their actions, which may not be that interesting. So
Correct.
you would say finding something special regardless of who you are, like trying to be a
Yeah,
little bit weirder always.
always. Yes.
Okay.
Embrace your weirdness. Absolutely.
Like that. Okay. So question number 6. Is it a good idea to choose a niche major rather than a common one? Does it actually make your chances better for a top school? And I know there are like two different types of schools, right? The ones that accept based on major or on college itself, but you have both scenarios. So how would you answer the question considering both?
So I think it's all about fit. So, and I know I've mentioned this before, but you want to be able to, whatever major you choose, you don't want to be random. You don't want to just say anthropology and then you'll be like, no, actually, I want to be in the medical sciences type of major. They're going to be like, what? That was weird. But anything that you've been working towards. So, like, let's say that you're fascinated about autism and you're working at a neurocognition lab and you're doing research and you published a research paper and you wrote a book or whatever and it all has to do with neurodiversity or whatever the theme is, then it would make sense for you to go into that cognitive neuroscience type of field. So, whatever your activities, it's kind of like imagine that you read my resume and you're going to be like, okay, based off of that, this is your major. This is what you're going to do. You could guess that. That's what makes it possible.
And if it makes sense for your story, would you always recommend niching down just to stand out more? Because those colleges that don't accept based on major, they still like look at your major that you want to go into for your story, if it makes sense with your story and your path. So would you still recommend niching down if it makes sense?
I would, if possible. Like if it's a type of college that will embrace that. Obviously, I don't like to talk in general terms, but yeah, like fine tune who you are, what you like to do, and at the same time, it's okay to click on and decide it exploratory, but showing that you are actually exploring.
Makes sense. Question 7. My extracurriculars are weak. Can I put hobbies like weightlifting on my activities section?
So I was recently giving a talk at a boarding school about extracurriculars, and what we have to avoid is being basic. If you go to the gym, that's great, but is there any club leader chaperone that's taking into account, or could you just BS your way through it? So, same thing. I've seen students that will be like, I volunteer at my local church, synagogue, whatever designation. And it's like, okay, yes, that's great, but I always recommend a more structured type of club. And if you don't have enough activities, we can be creative.
Hmm. So, for example, so you said there are ways of if you have external proof in a way. So let's say you like running, you shouldn't put like I like running like and putting it as a hobby, but put it more as a part of who you are in the sense that you have external proof. For example, I run marathons, like 3 a year, for example, or I did an ultra marathon or running competitions. Like you need to have that external validation
Yeah, you should. And then that way you're showing how you're proactive about it. Because if you just run by yourself, you don't have that level of accountability. But what if you're part of a run club that meets every single Tuesday at 6 p.m. sharp? Or you're training with a running athlete or whatever it's called. I don't run, but like hypothetically. And then you're part of like these 12K, 30K, 5K, I'm sorry, um, marathons. And then with that, you're actually, this is what's called scaffolding. Like just like a scaffold, like in a building, it's habit stacking that you're not just running just because, but you're actually saying, okay, what quantifiable events or action plans am I part of that shed light on my hobby or passion for running?
That's interesting, and that's a framework I really like for activities in general. Like, let's say you play video games. If you want to turn any activity or anything you do into an activity for college, you build upon it. If you like a certain video game, if you make YouTube videos, it becomes a more serious activity. If you build a business around it or coaching, it becomes more serious, even if it's video games and it sounds cooler
Yeah.
and you want to sound cool.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a student that in the beginning, and this is part of the scaffolding process, be like, oh, I like to invest money. I like to make money. Okay, great. But what kind of impact are you creating? Who's benefiting from this? How do I know you really are in the stock market and trading? And then he actually created YouTube videos, like his tips and tricks. He created social media awareness. He took a course on finance and stock trading. So you see how with the scaffolding component, you're actually building up upon it. You're not just saying like, oh, I'm putting money in here just because, but you're actually creating impact and generating knowledge and wealth while you're at it.
Oh yeah, love that. I mean, I
Yeah.
feel like it just makes a lot of sense. It's
Yeah.
pretty common knowledge, but you don't really hear it put into words like that. I like that. Okay, so question number 8: can you really recover from a bad year, academically speaking, as if you got like really bad GPA or something?
Yes, you can. I've seen countless stories about these, but of course, every student is different. I've had a student that she was engaged in an internship, and that took up so much of her time that her grades actually went down. But it was such a wonderful internship. And in the additional information section, we explained it. It was like, okay, makes total sense. We understand that. Okay, good. Or maybe there was a health situation, and then you explain it, or God forbid, a tragedy in the family or something that you could say, hey, this occurred. The most important thing is like, okay, the so what factor. What happened next? How did you recover? Did the internship finish and then you got a better grade? Did you focus on your mental health, meditation, exercise, whatever? So now you're in a positive mindset. All of these things that you could say that was before, but now look at the person who I am now.
Just to be a devil's advocate, because that makes sense, but just to be a devil's advocate, what about, let's say the internship
Mhm.
example that you
Yeah.
said, right? If a college sees that you did an internship and because of that you couldn't really perform in school, college is harder than school and you are
Yeah.
going to get more work. So isn't
Yeah.
that a red flag that you won't be able to take it? Because for mental health reasons, I get it. And if it actually helps and you say it helps, it probably does, right? I feel like you can justify those things. And if it's a tragedy or something, you can't really control
Mhm.
that. But
Yeah.
for specific examples like the internship, what happens there? Is it actually helping? Can you actually recover?
You could recover. You could definitely recover. It's just a matter of like how you're going to create that story. Are they going to be empathetic towards you? Are they going to be like, "Oh, I actually identify with what you said. I've been there." And then with that, it's kind of like you're showing that you're forgiving yourself, you're being kind to yourself, and you created this action plan.
Okay. And also, as
Yeah.
you said, probably it adds up with building upon it and going through it and improving. Maybe you work too hard on the internship and you learn some balancing. Could be like that. So it's again all back to storytelling.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Question number 9. Does applying early decision actually help that much?
Yes, it does because you're showing that you're committing. The school is your priority. Now, the fact that you're applying ED doesn't mean that you're going to get in right away. You could be deferred. You could be sent to a regular decision type of approach, but you are maximizing your chances for many of them. Not all of them, though.
Okay. One of the big counter arguments I've gotten through this is that, well, on early decision, the best applicants are applying, and you have those athletes that are going to get accepted anyways, that got recruited. So would you say, and that maybe
Mhm.
inflates some of the acceptance rates for early
Yeah.
decision. So would you say that is like fake, like more acceptance rate, or is it still beneficial to apply early decision?
I think it's still beneficial, but we kind of, I know this is a little bit unconventional, but we're being very, very authentic here. I would steer away a little bit from the numbers because if you're just looking at the acceptance rates, you might get into a college that has an 8% acceptance rate, but you might not get into one that's 10%. Why?
Mm,
Because a lot of these numbers could have different meanings behind it. The important thing is for you to be intentional. And there's crazy years. This year with Michigan, it's been insane. People have applied ED and people are still navigating this and it's part of life.
well, I feel like that makes a lot of sense. And just as a small like additional question on that, what about REA, like restrictive early action? Does that one help?
It does help, but not for every single college. So we just have to be careful as well. If you're the type of person, if you have your SAT score ready and you're good to go ahead, apply.
Okay. Then the next question, and it ended up being pretty much connected, is that so question number 10. Is it true some colleges reject great students on purpose for yield stats? So they reject really good students that they think, oh, they're not going to come here. So we're just going to reject them for our yield statistics. Do you think that happens?
Sometimes a student may be surprised. He may have been like, he or she or they may have been like, well, I thought I was going to get in. That was my safety school. Nothing is ever guaranteed in this process. So don't think because you have XGPA or SAT or story, you're going to get it.
Hmm. Even if it's like your safety.
Even if it could be your safety, maybe something happens. That's why you have to build a very, very solid, balanced list. And at the same time, you can get in anywhere if you put in the work as well. So there are no obstacles either.
Question number 11, and this one is a really big question. Is money really that big of an advantage?
So I know this is very unconventional, but money always helps. Money, I don't see it as an obstacle. So if you say, and they do have this question on the Common App, like, are you applying for financial aid? If you say no, if you're a full pay student, that really helps.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But for example, let's say you're applying to a need blind school, but they
Mhm.
still ask if you're applying for financial aid. I think you can see that. And if you have a fee waiver, like maybe they still care. Does it affect like need blind applications too?
They say they don't, but I always tell this to the parents of my students. If you have a lot of money or you have very little money, you're gonna go far. It's gonna be great. If you're kind of the in between, the sandwich, you really need to work hard for it, which is a little bit ironic because if we think of a hamburger or a sandwich, that's the meat, the bacon, the chicken, the protein, that what really matters, not the bread, not the sauce. But it's kind of like the liminal ones, the lots of money, the financial aid, that's really gonna help. But if not, like we're just gonna need to work harder.
Mhm. I mean, yeah, they also have a lot of money for college consulting and other things.
Correct. Yes.
And you as a
Yeah.
college consultant, you see all types of students. I talk with students all the time as well. You can see a lot of different profiles, and you gotta play the game different. There's a really big advantage that if you have the money, you gotta know how much of an advantage it actually is. If you don't have that much money and you need a lot of financial aid, you can still play the game, but it's just another way. And maybe if you're more in the middle, you're the meat of the sandwich, then maybe you just need to aim for more merit scholarships. It's different games. I feel like people treat us the same thing when it's pretty different, and you do get a really big advantage for money. I agree with you on that. Absolutely. So, question number 12. Do legacy and donor status still actually help you get in?
Yes, it does. So if it's legacy, and there's a reason why they do ask you on the application, like, okay, have you had a family member, so on and so forth. Now, that does not mean that you're going to get in 100%. It helps. It's like a foot in the door, but you also have to have your own merit and donor status. I think it also helps significantly, but again, it does not guarantee.
Hmm. I do see legacy. For me, donor status is something that doesn't get spoken about that much, only in jokes
No.
like, yeah, I'm going to donate a building and I'm going to get in.
Yeah.
Like, I see that. But for example, legacy, they do ask. So you expect it to have an influence.
Yeah.
But with donor status, like, does it still help? Do they like keep it? Do they track that? How does that work?
So they do. So sometimes, well, many times I do ask my students, like once they're applying, do you have an alumni or a family member that has applied that you could send the recommendation letter directly? And it's kind of like these creative approaches, but they actually do help out. So if you have a family member that's a donor or anything like that, go ahead and communicate it. It doesn't mean that you're going to get in, but it's kind of like a checklist. And it's like, wow, okay, that's great.
Yeah, just a little bonus. Perfect.
Yeah, just like sneaking it in there, like, by the way, FYI, you need to know this information.
Perfect. So, question number 13. Does ethnicity or background still influence admissions decisions after affirmative action was banned? This question was huge this year since all the legal stuff was going on and all the lawsuits. So, does it still affect you?
I think it matters. There are many colleges that will ask you as a supplement, like talk about your experiences or background. By the way, you could talk about certain experiences like being part of the varsity soccer team, but you could also talk about because one of the prompts for many colleges like talk about one of the communities that you're part of, and you can talk about your diversity as well. So does it matter? I think it still matters, regardless of whether they're trying to evolve from that. I think it does matter.
Hmm. And do you think you gotta control it more than you used to? As in, maybe not make it like your main theme?
Yeah, don't make it your main theme because that's not what's going to get you into college. You could sprinkle in, but make it relatable and relevant. You're not just going to say it just so that it's like a check mark, but you're going to say it in a way that they could be like, oh, okay, makes sense. It's part of the identity here.
Okay. Question number 14. And I changed this one a little bit to get like a
Mhm.
more, like a broader and better answer. So, what do admissions officers never admit publicly?
I think there's always going to be a Grinch in the room. So, what do I mean by that? There's always going to be like an admissions panel that are going to be reviewing your application. And there's going to be always at least one that's going to be like skeptical, like, oh, is that club really worth it? Or what was this person talking about? Or I wasn't moved about with that essay type of thing. So you're always going to have somebody. So you have to always play the devil's advocate when you're reviewing your application. Like, does it make sense? Is this a sob story? Is this something that you'll get bored out of? Type of thing. Yeah.
So, you gotta expect someone to be against you always on the committee?
Yeah, but then you always, since it's a committee, you want somebody to vouch for you that after reading the essay, they're going to be like, I actually liked it. So even though you may have somebody that's skeptical, the rest of the committee may be like, hey, you know what? It was a compelling application. Let's move forward.
Perfect. So, question 15. Up to what extent can I stretch the truth in my app? Basically, how much can I lie on my application?
So I always believe that you should be truthful no matter what, such as using AI, try to avoid it. Be very, very truthful with what you say because you never know what's going to happen. You don't want to say that you're doing such a, I feel it's such a small world that you don't want to be panicked. And ultimately, when you're doing your affirmations on Common App, you're saying that all the information is true. So then it's kind of like invalidating the contract. So always, just like in life, be truthful always.
I'm gonna give you a little bit. I mean, I totally agree with you. I at the end of the day, I do think you gotta be totally truthful. But I'm gonna give you a little bit of my opinion as well. I don't know to ask you what you
Yeah.
think. So I believe you can lie up to some extent, but I feel like if you inflate your numbers a little bit, like yes, they can't prove it, but it won't really change as like your decision as much as you think. Like I remember thinking this when I was applying to college. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna just inflate my numbers a little bit, maybe add some more statistics that don't exist. But it doesn't really help as much as you think. And on the other side, if you are actually going to lie about something that helps you, it has to be big enough that it's extremely risky. And the only thing you're doing is stretching it. And the only thing you can't gain anything. You're just stretching it until the point it may break.
It
And you
may
don't want it to
break,
break.
yeah. Sometimes when I'm helping students create their passion project, let's say they want to create like a social media awareness type of thing. I always tell them like the first thing is you don't have to become a content creator influence with 50,000 followers. So you don't have to like stretch it in the sense that you're going to say like, okay, over 50K followers, because they might be like, wow, that's impressive. Let me go into their TikTok, Instagram, whatever. And then if they don't see that number, they're going to be like, that's weird. And that's not the case. Like you're not here to amass these crazy numbers, or you don't want to say like, oh, I amassed over $50,000 or whatever the case is. But what you could focus on is something compelling that you're like, oh, I'm spreading awareness, even if it's for a group of people, you're creating what some type of awareness that's going the extra mile.
Question number 16. Do admissions officers actually click links and verify things, or is it just like a vibe check?
So what I recommend if they're interested in you, they may, like if it's a portfolio, they may look into that. But not necessarily, they're not going to be checking absolutely everything.
Okay. Do you think they check more if they're interested or if they are skeptical?
So I always look at it like imagine that you're going to a job interview and the interviewer is like, "Huh, tell me more. I want to learn more about this. Tell
Mm,
me about that." If they have this curiosity, they're going to be checking that out. But if they're not interested, they're not going to be wasting their time either.
perfect. This next question is pretty similar. It's like a little bit smaller. So, question 17. What if colleges check my social media? Can it hurt my application? And do they even check it at all?
Sometimes they check it. So there are some colleges who they'll say like, okay, what's your social media handle? And I've had students that are influencers and they're public figures, etc. Just make sure that you're kind, that you don't have any type of content that like always think of it like if a 5-year-old were to look at it or an elderly person, would that still be respectful? If your parent were to look at it, would that be okay? A teacher, same thing here. As long as you're being kind, authentic, that it works out, for the common good, then it's fine.
Hmm. And I feel like honestly, the only way that it can hurt you is if you're like extremely political and controversial and all that
Yeah,
stuff. I feel like if it's
correct.
not that, I don't think you're gonna have any trouble. Question number 18. Can admissions officers tell when an essay wasn't written by you or you used AI?
Absolutely. I can tell it in a second. If you show me an essay, if it has M dashes, if it has a typical type of writing that like, okay, not only did this teach me, but that, like we can sniff this out like hounds. Absolutely.
Yeah, AI has its things. And for me, it's a shame that it uses M dashes. I feel like they're an incredible
I
grammar.
love M dashes. Yes.
Yeah. It's a shame, but like at some point, the way it writes, I feel like it's so distinguishable. I wouldn't be able to like pinpoint exactly what it is, apart from the things you said. But it just has its own. Like it's not like you can just tell AI to write it and you can like change a couple sentences. Like sadly, it doesn't work like that. I don't know how. But you have to write it all by yourself, or it seems AI. It's really really weird how it works.
Yeah. And I know I'm going to sound like a dinosaur for saying this, but I've been doing this for about 20 years. But in the past, like I would see students that would use a word myriad or plethora or whatever. And it's like, you don't really use that. You looked up into like the thesaurus and it just doesn't flow with it. So it doesn't have to be super sophisticated language that's not yours. So we can definitely sniff this out.
Yeah, you're a high schooler. You have
Yeah.
no reason to be using those words. I agree with that.
Another thing that I want to add on now that we're being authentic, I can sniff out, and I will say this to the parent when the parent writes it. One way that we can sniff this out, if you have a double space after the period, because this is how like MLA, APA citation styles were in the end, like a typewriter that you would like period, space, space. And sometimes I've had to confront parents like, hey, did you actually edit this essay or did you write this? Because this is not a 16, 17, 18-year-old's writing. This is an over 50. So I like to be unapologetic and confront it at the root of that.
Wait, didn't know that. That's
Well,
it
I see that all the time and it
all the
breaks my
time?
heart because it's like, okay, well, I mean, not all the time, but I see this so many times and the parents feel that they're helping out and we can sniff this out in a second.
Wow. I haven't encountered that, or maybe I have encountered that and I just haven't noticed. I feel like that's
Yeah.
something I get with experience as well. I didn't know that. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I have another example. I have a parent that like totally switched out like the words of vocab and then for a word instead of saying kids or children, they put youngsters.
Oh
So
yeah.
I asked my students like, what does youngsters mean? Like I haven't really seen that word. And it's like the parent was like, well, but I thought it would look a little bit more sophisticated. We can sniff that out.
Yeah, I mean, nobody under 40 says that, to be honest. It's completely
Exactly.
respectful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. And the idea is for the kid to go to college, not the parent. That's
exactly.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, question number 19. If I tell the truth about stress or mental health in my application, will that hurt my chances? This connects back a little bit to the other one with bad academic years. But what do you think? Do you think it can hurt your chances?
Unfortunately, I think it could because and it all depends on like the way that you portray this. If they have, like they always say, like if it's a red flag, even if it's a pink flag, we just have to be careful because we always want it to be a good fit, right? And if there's anything like that, we don't just want them to be like, well, I'm concerned, or will they have the resources, and so on and so forth. So you have to be authentic, but at the same time, there's a time and the place where you don't have to like blurt out all your secrets either. That's a
Hmm.
reality. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I feel like it's really easy to overshare with this,
Yeah.
and some students may have a lot of trouble and a lot of problems. But I feel
Correct.
like, sadly, and this is the truth. I mean, colleges don't want to see a sob story, even if you do have a really sad story. So maybe the way to do it is just be more of an inspiration, and even if you haven't
Mhm.
overcome it yet, or it's still something in your life, show how you're dealing with it. I feel like that should be like the way to do it if you want to talk about it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Correct. No sob stories here, and you can always turn this around. Yeah.
Great. I feel like that's a really good answer. So finally, question number 20. If me and my classmates are applying to the same school, should I gatekeep what I'm doing? Am I competing with them? That's a really good question.
That's a really, really good question. So I was just talking to a student and I was telling her, like, you don't even need to share your SAT score with your friends. Like, if that's giving you anxiety, they don't need to know. And same thing with applications. So you could, so I work with students from all over the world. And the other day, a parent was telling me, like, I'm going to find out who this person that's applying to this other ED school. You don't need to know the names or anything, but you don't have to blur it out. You know how they say, like, work in silence. You don't have to be oversharing all the information. Once you know where you're going, you'd be like, hey, I'm going to this type of college. But while you're doing the work, because the reality is, if you have a competition in your own school, like if you have 10 applicants that are applying to the same school, even if it's ED, the 10 applicants are not getting in. So with that being said, you don't want to be like, oh, I'm applying to this one. And then your friend's going to be like, oh, me too. Now I want to do that too. That's not a good strategy.
Hmm. And I feel like that's classic gossip. You just want to know what your classmates are getting into and what they are doing. But yeah, you just gotta play in silence. Though at the same time, I do think collaboration is really strong on college
Hmm.
applications, and it's a really good way to like boost your extracurriculars really quickly. Like you can scale way faster with friends or with other people. So if I have my friends in my school and we're working together on something, like is that convenient? Should I do it anyways?
Oh, absolutely. So I think collaboration really works. So if you want to be a co-founder rather than just a founder because you're going to feel you're going to be burnt out, that absolutely works. You can even have collaboration. You can share an essay with a parent, a cousin, a friend. And you can be like, hey, is this a depiction of who I am? Like if you were to read this without my name on it, is this me or does this sound like a generic type of essay? So collaboration absolutely helps. And at the same time, being strategic. It's like chess. You need to know what your next step is, but like always in silence too, just in case.
And what if me and my friends are applying to like the same school?
Well, that's a risk. You may get to the point that your friend may get in, you may not get in, or vice versa. And sometimes that's part of life that it's rejection is redirection. You may see it as like the worst outcome ever, whatever the circumstance is, but then it's always, always a blessing in disguise.
Hmm. Yeah, I agree with that. It's just really hard to see if you're the student, like the
Exactly.
redirection. You can see it
Yes.
until later. And
Yeah.
I think that with your friends, if you're applying to the same schools and you collaborate on a couple of projects, then I feel like one of the best ways to just fix any issues that you may have is just speak with them and
Yeah.
make sure you don't repeat things. Maybe one of them wants to stretch the truth and they want to say they're the leader. And it's not like that. And maybe somebody else want to do the same and they think they're smart and you would just mess everything up and nobody gets accepted.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen stories. I've seen stories where two friends write very similar essays and it's like what to do. So you just have to be careful. Sometimes we would say like, "Oh, that would never happen to me," but it could when it does.
Almost
So
good. Yeah.
just be careful. And at the same time you'll keep your friendships or you'll know who your true friends are.
Exactly. Yes. Worst case scenario is just like a revelation of your true friends. I agree with that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
those were the 20 questions. I just had one more that I wanted to ask that I just thought like could be really cool and I just wanted to hear the story. So, as a bonus question, 21, what's the most brutal rejection story you've witnessed?
Okay, so I just recently had a student that she applied to ED Michigan, and it was just so it wasn't a rejection, but it was just like, like you're thinking you're gonna get in and so on and so forth. But then that really helps you analyze like, okay, why do I really want to get there? Is it because of the image? Is it because everybody in my school is applying? Is it because of my parents? And then it's like I've seen not just this story, but countless stories where it's like, wow, okay, that was a great lesson. And then I actually decided to ED2 to this other place. And it was the best decision. It was the best outcome. So you see how sometimes the universe redirects you and you don't even know why. I'm like, why did that have to happen? But then you look back and you're like, absolutely. So these are the lessons that we have to take in life all the time.
Mhm. I agree with that. Thank you,
Yeah,
Nabella. I think this was
you're welcome.
awesome. I mean, collecting these questions, I like I was thinking of what you would answer for some of them, and it's pretty like interesting. I see these ones like students are really having them, and I don't know. I just think it was a really good like session. I think we could get really good answers here. Thank you.
I loved this. This was authentic, candid. We talked about what nobody really liked to talk about, and we've got this.
Hmm